So, welcome everybody. My name is Alexandra Witczak-Haugstad. I work here at the Research Council of Norway with the EEA and Norway Grants research programs. And it's my pleasure to welcome you to this seminar and the first of our online seminars. So we're all a bit nervous if this is our ambitious setup is going to work. Crossing our fingers. So I will first introduce the participants and the presenters and the agenda. And the next I will give you a short introduction to the EEA and Norway grants mechanism before we move on to the main course of this seminar, which is presentation on contracts. So here we start. The participants, we have an online audience, we hope, of about 20 participants. We have, I thought you would be 20 in this room, but I think you're now a bit more, so this is also good. And we have a group in Reykjavik, Vidar and his lot, hello. And there is also a video link with Romania. So among the audience, we have researchers, we have legal advisors, financial advisors, and EU grants coordinators at the institutions. And I've made a list of the institutions that were present in the registration yesterday. I'd like to mention that the registration remains open at least over the weekend. So those of you who are present or are following through on the web and would like to register, please do so. This will give us the email list that we need to send out documents and follow up this seminar. So for the presenters, we have on the video link to Bucharest, the Ministry of National Education, my colleagues Anca Ginescu. Anca, give us a wave. There, yeah, there's a bit of time lag between the... And Vasile Lungu, they are the program coordinator and the deputy program coordinator. So they are people that you will meet throughout the program. And here in Oslo, we have at the Research Council of Norway, you have me, Alexandra, and there is Geir in the front. You can't see him on the camera, but he's here. He's our communication advisor and will help me carry this out. So today's agenda, I will give you a brief introduction, then we will have the main presentation by Anca. Then we will take a break of about 50 minutes so that you may send in your questions regarding issues that come up as you follow the presentation and allow us to read those questions and collect them up so that we can have a good session afterwards. For those of you here in this room, of course, you will be also invited to ask your questions in person. Come up here so that you show on the camera and ask them directly. So it's mainly for people following us out there. You will need to send emails, and you can start doing that as soon as you wish. So if we have time left over, we can move on to other questions regarding this program that are not specific to the contract issue. But we need to get through the contract questions first. So, the EEA and Norway grants, I know some of you are very much into this and know everything about the EEA and Norway grants, but I guess that some of you do not. So, just to make sure that we're on a common footing and know what we are talking about here. The background for this funding is the EEA agreement between Iceland, Liechtenstein, and Liechtenstein and Norway and the European Union, which gives us access to the European market. Then there are the EEA and Norway grants, which is kind of a contingent, a fund which is set up with Norwegian, Icelandic and Liechtenstein funding to as a parallel to the structural funds, the cohesion funds in the European Union. So to say it simply, if we had been member, we would be contributing to the cohesion funds. Since we are not member, we are contributing through the EEA and Norway grants to the same objectives as those of the structural funds. So reducing economic and social disparity in Europe. The funding, EEA and Norway grants funding in this period is about 15 billion Norwegian kroner. And the research cooperation programs, which are a subset, they're only a part of this funding, they have around 1 billion Norwegian kroner. And the EEA agreement is for the period 2009 to 2014. So we are now in the process of negotiating a new agreement. But the programming period for this funding will go on until 2016, and in the case of the research programs, 2017. So we had two different time periods. And the countries where we have research cooperation programs are marked here, with Romania as one of those countries. So, as I already mentioned, the objectives of this funding is to reduce economic and social disparities and increase bilateral cooperation between the donor countries, Iceland, Norway, and Liechtenstein, and the countries receiving this support, in this case, Romania. So for the research programs, the objectives are to increase research-based knowledge development in Romania through cooperation with Norway and Iceland. The research projects are to be based on equal partnerships, but in each case, the coordinator, the leadership of the project must be in Romania. And then there are several other objectives as to how this program shall contribute to the development of capacity and research capacity in Romania and also in Norway and Iceland. So just shortly about the Research Council's role in all of this. We are what is called a donor program partner, and for this particular program we share this role with RANI's Center for Scientific Research in Iceland. Hello, Vidar, my colleague Vidar in Iceland is helping me with this. So the donor program partners are kind of advisors to the programs. So we follow the program, we are invited as observers to the program committee meetings, and we'll keep on following this program. We also will work to facilitate contact between Romania and Norway and Iceland. And this seminar is exactly what we're trying to do, facilitate the information flow between the two countries. And we also will like to promote sharing of good practice and cooperation. And just getting into the world of EEA and Norway grants, you will meet a number of abbreviations. So just a short run through those. The NFP is the national focal point. In each country receiving the support, there is one ministry or agency responsible for coordinating all EEA and Norway grants in that country. So in Romania, that is the Ministry of European Funds. Then there is the program operator, the institution responsible for running the program. And that is in Romania, the Ministry of National Education, our colleagues here. Then you will have the project promoter, which is the EEA and Norway grants term for the project coordinator, or project leader institution. And on the other side, in Norway, we have the DPP, which is then the Research Council, and RANIS in Iceland. And the FMO, which is the Financial Mechanism Office. It's located in Brussels, but it's an agency run by the foreign ministries of the three donor countries. So it's a secretariat coordinating the EEA and Norway grants in all countries. And briefly, I'm coming to the end of my presentation, but this is kind of the flow chart which illustrates both how funding and reporting is flowing in this program. So we have in Brussels the FMO, where the funding originates, if we now kind of run the funding list. So the funding originally comes from the FMO, coming from the national budgets of the three countries. So from the national budget of Norway, money goes to the the FMO into Brussels. And then they redistribute this between the countries that are receiving this funding. So in the case of Romania, then, funding goes to, I should use the arrow. So we have FMO, and then the funding will go to the national focal point in Romania, which was the Ministry of European Funding. Then the program operator will receive the program budget into their budget, and they will pass the funding on to the project promoter. And then the project promoter will be sending money to the partners, both partners in Norway and Iceland and other partners in Romania. So this is, and then reporting will go the other way. The Norwegian project will report to the project promoter, that will report to the program operator, and so on. So as you can see, the Research Council of Norway and RANIS, the funding flow does not go through us, and the reporting flow does not go through us. We are just hanging over it all, kind of in our own little cloud, and we have contact with all parties, but all the money and all the reporting goes through this channel. So, briefly about this particular program. As I've already told you, the program operator is the Ministry of National Education in Romania. In some cases, they can choose to delegate some of the tasks to another agency, and for the evaluation process, that was the UEFISCTI. So that's why you meet different institutions in Romania, but it's the ministry that is the responsible part. The budget of the program is 23 million euro. There was one call, and that was it. All the funding is distributed through this one call. We had 414 applications, which were admirably handled by the implementing agency, which managed to complete the evaluation in a very short time period, using international experts from 31 countries. And at this point, we now have 23 projects who were selected for funding. We hope that the project will have 3 years for running, but everything has to end by the end of April 2017. Any costs incurred after April 2017 will not be supported through this program. That's the final end, and different from EU funding and from Research Council funding, there will be no possibilities of extensions. And also then the issue today, contracts. The deadline for completing the contracts is end of June, because as of July 1st, a new state aid framework comes into place, and it would then necessitate changes in the contract. So we're hoping that all contracts will be finished by June 2014. That's it from me. Now we'll move over to Bucharest, and Anka will start her presentation.
Thank you, Alexandra. Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to congratulate all the participants for their successful attendance to the competition, which was held at the end of last year for our program, Research Within Priority Sectors. As you already mentioned, the good communication and information flow is crucial, especially at this time. And in my presentation, I will give the main features of the grant agreement model as concise as possible, although it is a lengthy document. This document, grant agreement model, might look familiar to some of you, since we have started its drafting from the model used by the Polish side for the research program which is funded under the Norwegian financial mechanism. The grant agreement was finalized after taking on board all the legal framework applicable to this program and, of course, the specific national legislation in force related to the implementation of this EEA financial mechanism and also for the research activities in Romania. So let's get started with this PowerPoint. And Alexandra, thank you in advance for assisting me in scrolling this presentation. As you can see, there are many chapters of this contract to go through. I will tackle them one by one, highlighting the main ideas. At the end of the presentation, I will say a few words for the partnership agreement, and also I will tell you which are the next steps to be followed in the forthcoming period. Next slide, please. Okay, so the program operator, the Ministry of National Education, is the contracting authority, whereas the project promoter is the contractor. These two are parties to the grant agreement. However, the entire consortium is mentioned in the grant agreement. In the first chapter, we have the definitions and of the terms used, and in the second chapter, we have the object of this grant agreement, which is, of course, to provide a non-refundable funding for the accepted projects and also to clearly define the rights and obligations of the parties to this contract. In Chapter 3, all provisions related to duration are stated there. This grant agreement will enter into force upon its last signature and assignment of the registration number. The grant agreement will be completed when at the date of the final payment. But the start of the activities on the project will be 1st of July this year, according to the set schedule for negotiation and contracting. The completion of the activities on the project, as already mentioned by Alexandra, will be 30th of April 2017. Under the chapter funding, we have the total contract value mentioned both in lei and in euro. The exchange rate used for this transformation will be the info euro rate communicated by the European Commission for June. Also, under this chapter, we find a budget split per years of cooperation with separate values for the grant and for the co-funding. And also, there is a possibility to update the total value of the contract at the final payment based on a methodology that will be approved by the FMO on the use of the reserve budget line for the exchange rate losses. Next slide, please. We have general obligations for both parties. Of course, the national and EU regulations have to be complied, including the rules for competition, public procurement, state aid, and all the provisions of the grant agreement. What is important to keep in mind is that the contractor shall represent the entire consortium within the lifetime of the grant agreement. There are also other general obligations of the contractor with regard to the implementation of the project, like obligations concerning the dissemination activities, for the payments, for reporting, changes in the partnership agreement or in the legal or organizational statute of the contractor or of the project partners, Also, there are obligations concerning the private co-financing, the declaration of the private co-financing, ensuring an audit trail for the entire duration of this contract and also up to 5 years after the project completion. So mainly the contractor is responsible with regard to the achievement of the project objectives and also of the set indicators. And also he has to ensure that all project partners will abide with these rules and there will be a correct implementation of the project and fulfillment of all the obligations that are required by this contract. There are other specific obligations for the contractor. Of course, to perform all the activities according to the project proposal, to use the provided funds in an optimum way, to promote the activities on the project according to the set rules given by Annex 4 of the regulation. Also to collaborate with third parties which will be contracted by us for the monitoring and evaluation activities, to keep track of the assets purchased, to organize distinctly the accounting for economic or non-economic activities if it is the case. What is important also to have to open a dedicated account for the project and return the funding and the interest in case the project is terminated and so on. And there are other particular provisions which are valid only for the contractor and the project partners from Romania, since they derive from the national legislation in force. Next slide, please. What are the specific obligations of the contracting authority? Although they are less than for the other parties, they are not less important. We will promptly examine the documents submitted by the contractor. We will provide yearly advance payments of up to 90% of the annual value earmarked for the contract. We will preserve the confidential information belonging to or obtained under this contract. And we will ensure the assessment of the reporting documents and also the monitoring of the project. And there is also a specific clause with regard to the organization of our system for the protection of classified information. Next slide, please. Which are the eligible costs? According to the regulation, there are 8 cumulative conditions that have to be respected for the cost to be considered eligible. The cost should be incurred during the project implementation. The cost should be proportionate to the set objectives, and also the cost should be needed for the implementation of the project. They have to be included in the total budget of the grant agreement. They have to comply the categories of expenses which are stipulated in Chapter 7 of the regulation. It should be used for the sole purpose of achieving the project objectives and the expected results. They should be identifiable and verifiable and comply with the applicable legislation on taxes and with the approved state aid scheme. Also, the eligible costs will be used in accordance with the principles of fair competition, confidentiality, transparency, and avoiding the conflict of interest. The personal expenditures will be determined according to the national legislation in each country. The grant agreement contains also the categories of costs which are related to the travel expenses, and also an important information that the value-added tax is an eligible cost only if there is no deduction or reimbursement of it according to the national tax rules in each country. Also in the contract, the contractor and all the project partners shall declare the chosen model for the indirect costs and also its value. Next slide, please. And now we are at the reporting chapter. According to Annex 12 of the regulation, there are three types of reporting documents. There is the annual report, the final report, and the report on scientific publications that have to be submitted under this program. The annual report, which will be submitted within 30 days from the end of the fiscal year, will contain the following documents: a scientific and technical report using a model provided in one annex of this contract, a note which will give explanations on the use of the resources, and also a financial statement of the contractor plus the financial reports of the project partners in an aggregated form. And last but not least, a request for payment for the justified due amount that is covering the annual report, based also on a model to this grant agreement. One comment: the fiscal year ends on the end of December each year, which is good for you to know. The final report will be submitted also within the same deadline, from the 30 calendar days from the completion of the project, and it will contain a final publishable summary report. It will contain a report which is in a form of a questionnaire covering the wider societal implications of the project and the plan for use and dissemination of the generated results, and the distribution of the final financial contribution between the contractor and the project partners. The report on the scientific publication will be submitted during the lifetime of the project and at the end of the project. It will be submitted within 30 days of their publication, and it will contain references and summary of all scientific publications on this project results. Continuing with the reporting, the financial report, which will be submitted at the end of each financial year within those 30 calendar days, will comprise a post-calculation expenditures for the reporting period, based also on a model provided in the contract, and a sheet of costs incurred within the reported period, based also on a model provided. There will be also an interim financial report that has to be submitted by the contractor no later than the 5th working day of November in each budgetary year, using also a very simple model. This interim financial report will help us, the program operator, to gather the data and give our interim financial report to the FMO in Brussels. If there will be the case and there will be irregularities detected in these reporting documents, the contractor have to resolve all these documents or discrepancies within days from the receipt of the notification. The endorsement of the reporting documents by the program operator, except for the scientific and technical report, which is subject to the evaluation done by independent experts, is due within 15 working days from the receipt of all necessary documents. Next slide, please. What about evaluation? The purpose of the scientific and technical report evaluation is to check whether the implementation of the project is compliant with the grant agreement and if the implementation of the project leads to the achievement of the foreseen outputs and the objectives. Based on the evaluation, the program operator can withhold or reduce the future funding if the project is implemented in a contradictory manner or is breaching the law or no achievement of the foreseen outputs and objectives. The purpose for the evaluation of the final report is to find if the contract is deemed as executed or executed with summons to pay, contractual penalties, or non-executed in whole or in part. If there will be a failure to achieve the objectives of the project, there is necessary to send a notification to us in order to terminate the project. And of course, the unused funds will be reimbursed, and also the final report on the project will be submitted. And now, one of the most important chapters of this grant agreement about payments. According to Annex 12 of the regulation, the program operator has to ensure a positive cash flow during the lifetime of the project. So the advance payments upon request will be granted up to 90% of the amount earmarked for each fiscal year, except for the last year of operation, 2017. The advance payment for the last year will be maximum 70% of its earmarked budget. The advance payment conventions, which represents a model on one page only, a very simple model, shall be submitted no later than 5 working days after signing the grant agreement or at the beginning of each budgetary year in January. The interim payments, meaning the remaining justified due amount of up to 10%, will be paid upon request from the contractor based on the submission of the payment application. After the SNT report will be evaluated, and after endorsing by us all reporting documents. The final payment on the project will be done within 10 working days after the evaluation of the annual report for the last year of cooperation and of the final report, plus the approval of the reporting documents. What about the transfer of funds? From us to the contractor, we will make the transfer in maximum 10 working days from the date of approval of the advance payment convention or of the payment application. The transfer of funds from the contractor to you, to the project partners, will be done as well in maximum 10 working days from the receipt of funding. The transfers will be done in euro for the project partners located in Norway or Iceland. The funds, and now a few rules about the funds, remained unused at the end of the fiscal year. For the project partners in Norway or Iceland, they will keep the funds to be used for the next year with the same destination. As for the contractor and project partners in Romania, they will keep only the EEA grant, but they will transfer us back the co-funding in order to be transferred to the state budget. This co-funding will be transferred again to them within the first working days of the next year. These are the national rules stated in the law of public finance. The total bank interest arising from the project funding will be declared in the final report and will be reimbursed to us in order to be reimbursed to the financial mechanism. Next slide, please. A few ideas about the changes on the project. It is not allowed to introduce any changes in the project implementation without the consent of the program operator. If this situation occurs, then the grant agreement will be terminated without a period of notice. However, there are 3 exceptions to this rule. In case you want to have a shift among all categories of expenses, excluding indirect costs, so as the total reallocated value does not exceed 15% from the total project budget. If you want to change the dates for the achievement of specific tasks, but not exceeding 4 months, this change of dates shall not influence in any way the final date for completion of the project. And the third case is when you want to shift the funds between subsequent budgetary years, as long as they do not affect the activities foreseen in the annex related to the project plan. Any shift of funds shall not increase the total budget of the project. Anyway, there is a bond obligation from the contractor to notify the program operator about any change in the project implementation, including the 3 exceptions to the rule. If there will be the case and other changes are required, the contractor shall submit an application to us with stating the reasons for this change, plus a draft addendum to the grant agreement in maximum 30 days when this situation occurs, but no later than 3 months before the project completion. Next slide, please. Controls and audit. Controls shall be carried out at any time during the project implementation and within 5 years after the completion of the project. They will be carried out by by experts authorized by us or other control authorities according to the binding legal regulations. The controls will be carried out at the premises of the contractor and project partners from Romania, as well as locations for the project implementation in Romania. The procedure for the controls is described step by step in several articles in this contract. This is a rule which generates from FP7, meaning that compulsory audit is carried out by an independent and certified audit if the project budget is equal or higher than 375,000 euro, which is the case for all the projects. So there will be a compulsory audit. The auditing, the good news is that the auditing cost is an eligible cost on the project. This audit report for all the project partners and contractor will be submitted along with the final report. Next slide. In the next slide, there are some highlights about the IPR and public procurement. There are general ideas. The research results which will be obtained under this contract will belong to the contractor and the project partners and or their employees according to the partnership agreement and the legislation in force in each country. The research results will be managed by the owners with all the rights that are deriving from this ownership. The public procurement shall be carried out according to the binding legislation in the field of public procurement at both national and European community level, and also it will be in compliance with the provisions of a certain article in the regulation. All the documentation related to public procurement shall be kept by the contractor and the project partners for the period specified in regulation as well. And now, which are the situations for the termination of the contract or suspension of funding? Either party may terminate this contract after 1 month from notification which must specify the reasons. We can suspend or terminate funding after notification in 5 cases, like threatening situations for the execution of a contract, for not being able to ensure a positive cash flow from the contractor's scope, failure to comply with publicity obligations, irregularities that will make further execution of the contract impossible or unreasonable. We can also suspend or terminate funding without a notification in other 16 cases which are explicitly presented in the model grant agreement. The termination of the grant agreement, however, will not relieve the contractor from its obligation to justify the received funds and submit a final report within 30 days from the date of termination. The reimbursement of funds is treated in the next chapter in the case when the grant agreement is terminated. We also took into consideration the situation for the force majeure. If this occurs, neither party will be liable to the other, nor shall be deemed as breaching the contract provisions related to non-performance or improper performance of its obligations. There are several articles on this procedure to be followed. Next slide, please. Return of funding. If the grant agreement is terminated in certain circumstances which are stipulated in the grant agreement, the contractor shall refund the entire received funding within 15 days from the date of submission of the notification, together with the interest on the amount. In justified cases, we may request a partial refund of the funds transferred, especially when the case of force majeure occurs. Upon duly justified request, the contractor may postpone refunding or can reimburse the funding in several installments or be exonerated by us when there is a proven failure of the research activities. We can suspend financing and we could oblige the contractor to refund the amount, the funding plus the interest, if the Financial Mechanism Committee or the Ministry of European Funds will decide this way. And there are different contractual penalties which arise when there is a failure to meet the deadlines regarding the execution of the project activities with regard to the start date and final date of the contract, and if there will be a failure to perform the contract in whole or in part or misuse the funding. And now we are at the final chapter of the contract, the final provisions. So the rights, the obligations and responsibilities of the contractor and the project partners cannot be transferred to a third party without the prior consent obtained from us, from the program operator. There are also a number of rules set for the communication between the parties and between the parties to the grant agreement. You have to know that the project partners and the contractor can subcontract activities, those activities that are proved to be necessary to the project and which cannot be made directly by one of the project partners, which cannot be the main activities of the project. The subcontracting cannot be higher than 15% of the total project funding. There is also an article dealing with the change of the project investigator. This can be changed only in the event of death or at the proposal of the executive committee, which is going to be established under the partnership agreement, or if the director cannot continue its activities on the project due to illness, accident, resignation or force majeure. The cessation of this grant agreement or some parts of it, it is forbidden. There are also 10 annexes to this grant agreement. The first annex is the project application, which was submitted at the moment when the call for proposals was open, and most of the rest of the annexes are different forms to be used for reporting during this the execution of the contract. And now a few words about the partnership agreement. Next slide, please. So, according to Article 6.8 of the regulation, a signed partnership agreement shall be submitted to us before signing the grant agreement. So we have drafted a model for the partnership agreement in consultation with the donor program partners, starting from the DESCA model for the partnership agreement. As a result, we have partnership agreement which is tailored for this program. This model will be provided to each contractor at the beginning of the negotiation and the contracting phase. Just a few ideas about this partnership agreement. The purpose is to specify the relationship among the parties which are defined as members of the project consortium. In particular, concerning the way that they are organizing their work and activities on the project. They have to decide upon the daily management of the project and also the rights and obligations of the parties, including the liability, the access rights, and the dispute resolution. The partnership agreement has provisions concerning the applicable legal framework, its entry into force, duration and termination, responsibilities of the parties, responsibilities towards each other, governance structure, financial provisions for grant, access rights, non-disclosure information, auditing, and so on. And now, I would like to present you what are the next steps for the near future. Today, we are going to send out the answers for the submitted appeal, and we will publish the final list of the projects to be funded. And starting with tomorrow, May 29, we will start this negotiation and contracting phase. We will send out the letters of invitation for all the contractors in the final list. And we will, next week on Monday, June 2nd, we will organize an information meeting with the contractors here at our venue. On June 3rd, the contractors will send us a letter on the acceptance or on the rejection of the conditions set for the reduced budgets for the projects according to the program committee decision. This one comment to this reduced budget should not affect the set objectives, the outcomes, the activities, nor the consortium of the project. So then on 6th of June, the contractors will send us the documents needed for signing the grant agreement. The grant agreement filled out, the partnership agreement signed, a note on the changes done to the grant agreement compared as a result of the reduced budget, which will make a very easy comparison between the project application submitted and the new budget for the project. They will have to make these changes in some of the annexes that were submitted during the competition. On June 11, they will receive the feedback from the project officer and the financial officer on the received documents. And on 13th of June, the contractors will send us the documents with all the changes done at the request of the officers. The final check of the documents will be done by the project officer and the financial officer, and the answers will be sent to the contractors and of course the final announcement if they fulfill or not all the requirements for signing the contract. This will be done on June 17. The next 2 days are allocated for sending us the grant agreements signed by the contractors, the originals, in case when the negotiation of the contract is completed. Together, this grant agreement signed will be sent together with the first advance payment conventions. If the negotiation will not be completed, the alternative is to open negotiations with one or more of the projects from the reserve list. This alternative is according to the Annex 12 of the regulation. The next week is dedicated to the internal approval and signing the grant agreements and the advance payment conventions here at the program operator. And the last days of June will be used to transfer the funds, the first advances, and to deliver the signed grant agreements to the contractors. And finally, some remarks at the end of my presentation. So, in order to keep this tight schedule, given the validity of the approved state aid scheme for this program, your collaboration with the contractor and your support to the contractor is crucial. So please don't hesitate to contact the representatives of DPPs or the members of the program operator team in case you need further clarification or there will be additional questions raised in the forthcoming period of negotiation. On the slide, you can see the contact details for me and Vasile. Thank you for your attention. Looking forward to your cooperation and your comments and answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Anka. So, according to the schedule, we will now take a 15-minute break. It will take us until, oh yes, we're on schedule actually, until 14:15 Central European Time. And now is the time when you can prepare your questions. For those in the room, you can prepare your questions. Those out there, please send in your questions by email so that we can collect them, communicate them to Romania and prepare some answers. So there is coffee outside, there's a little bit inside, and we'll see you again in 15 minutes. All right, then I hope we can start again now. The first questions that we have been receiving from several quarters is, will the presentation and the templates for the grant agreements be made available? And the answer is yes. We will use the same page as the one that you used to register for this event, the same page which is the entrance to the live stream. It will remain open and we will put all the documents on this page, and later we will also have them available through the web page that we have for the Romanian Norwegian program. So it will be on the internet, and also all those who register for the event, we get your emails, so we also can send you a follow-up mail and also continue the communication. We have a couple of copies in paper here, okay, of the agreement on the front table here. Somebody asked for them. Okay, yeah. Okay, so I suggest that we now proceed. We have some questions that we received through email that are now pasted on the onto the screen. So I suggest we go through those first, and in the meantime, my audience here in this room can also think about if you have any more questions you would like to ask. If you do, then please come forward We have some chairs, and then we'll give you some time and a microphone to present them. So the first question then is about the starting date for the project. Is it okay to set it later than July 1st?
Okay, good. That might as well be,
Well, it is, according to the grant agreement, the execution of the activities on the project will start at the date when the contract will enter into force, meaning at the latest 30th of June this year. So
Okay, so it should start.
I think that the project partners should take advantage on the period left for the activities on the project, since at this moment we are a little bit in a hurry, and also there is a little bit reduced time. There are no longer exactly 3 years for the project implementation.
And I think also in any case the start of the project date is not necessarily the start date for each work package under the project.
Right.
So I think those are adjustments that can be done within the project.
Within the consortium.
Yeah. Then there was a bit of lack of clarity for those following the presentation through the web as to who exactly are who is the contractors.
The contractor is just the project coordinator.
Okay, so it's just one contractor.
The project promoter.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
the
there's one
project
contractor
promoter.
per project. So you partners in Norway are not, and Iceland, you are not project contractors. You are partners. So the entire most of the presentation was about the project contract drafted between the project coordinator and the Romanian ministry. So it's not the contract that you are part of. You are part of the partnership agreement, and you are partners. So I think that answers this. And then we had a question on how to do the reduction of the project budget in the negotiation phase. What will it affect? Which categories of expenses are affected by the budget cuts? And which partners are affected by the budget cuts?
This is a discussion that has to be held between the members of the project consortium. It depends on the decision, and it's not. We are not intervening in this process on which categories of expenses and on what amount the reductions will be done.
Okay.
It's up to them.
Mm. So it's up to the project consortia whether you decide to cut one partner's budget or several partners' budgets, if you go in and what kind of cost categories you cut. You can cut the overhead or you can cut the direct costs. It is up to each. It's open. So the budget cut from the program committee did not specify which categories should be cut.
Was it specified if it will indeed be a cut and how much percent or not? Has it been specified?
For each project, the budget cut for each project is specified, and they differ. So I know. So I expect you will know in time as well. So the project promoter will receive information. Anka, have they already received? Yes. Each project have. So project promoters already know.
Now, tomorrow they will find out which is the reduced budget, together with the letter of invitation which we are going to send them.
Okay. So this information will become available tomorrow. That's it. Anything more on the budget cuts? No?
I do have one more. If the budget's cut, I can stop and review the next video.
It will not be visible. I mean, people who are following on the internet will not be able to hear you, even if we do.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Veide Paz from the Cancer Register of Norway. If the budget's cut for X% and we need to adapt the working package accordingly, do we need to resubmit the working package for further assessment or not? Do you understand the question?
Yeah, I do. But I think it's up to Anka to answer. Will there be a reassessment of the work packages? I don't think so, but it's up to you.
It won't be the case to reassess the work packages of the project. The reduction of the project budget will be made only in 2 annexes which were submitted at the time of the competition, and it won't be any further assessment of it. It will be just an explicit note which will give explanations where the shifts or the budgets, the cuts were performed in the new situation versus the initial application.
Okay. The issue of cutting budgets is always the tricky one, and I know everybody is nervous and waiting for the information coming tomorrow. There is one additional condition which was set in the call, which said that overall for the entire program, the amount of funding that would be allocated to the donor partners, to Icelandic and Norwegian partners, should not exceed 40%. So for each single project, this was not an absolute demand. We're looking at the overall figures for the entire program. And I think so far the figures that we got from the uncut budgets was that the Norwegian and Icelandic partners were getting something like 35%. Is
right.
that? Yeah, around
Yes,
35% of the budget. So what we can say on this issue is that the Norwegian partners seem to be well within the limits set, and there is actually some room still between the 35 and the 40%. Based on experience with the Polish-Norwegian program, I know that in many cases the budgets of the Norwegian partners are very tight and also are inflexible because of the personal costs that usually take up most of the bulk of the Norwegian budgets. And I know that cutting personal costs means cutting work and cutting out researchers, which is very tricky. So kind of the only message we can send is over to the Romanian partners to see, as they have the larger portion of the budget, if they have more flexibility in taking the budget cuts. I know the budget cuts vary across the projects. Some will have a challenge and some will have a rather minor cut. So I would say don't worry until tomorrow and then discuss it with your partners. That's this. And there was also one question on the issue of extending the duration of the project and the challenges that a project of less than 36 months gives if you have PhD students involved. I think I can actually answer this one without asking Anka's advice. No extensions. As I started in my presentation earlier, I told you about the agreement between Norway and the EU. It ends and there is no transfer of money. If our negotiators presently working in Brussels do not negotiate a new agreement, we will have absolutely no relationship with the EU. So the funding will come back. Whatever money is not spent goes back to the original source. So there is no transfer mechanisms. If we had a membership in the EU, which is on unlimited time, then transfers would be possible. But this is, so it's just no-go. It's not up to the ministry in Romania. It's not the Research Council. It's undoable. And thinking about extensions, just stop it. It will not happen. With the extension that was possible under the regulation from April 2016 and to April 2017, we already got that. So we've already lobbied on your part and asked for an extension, and there is nothing more to give. So for the issue of the PhD students, I would say, yes, that is very difficult, and this funding just has this limitation. And in any case, you should be wary when you involve PhD students, and I'm now particularly addressing Norwegian partners, your institutions will have the responsibility of following up on these students, even if they are delayed. And the funding from this project will not be available. You cannot get the money for this PhD and keep it at your institution and then pay them when they come back from maternity leave or whatever. All the costs have to be incurred by April. So whoever asked me my opinion before know this. I have been warning about the PhD issue, or it is very difficult, and it will not we do not have a solution for it. Yeah, things got difficult now. Any more questions from the room? Please come forward. We have a microphone here.
Also a difficult question, but it's important. And the question I wanted to address is, how do we communicate with our Romania partners? Because this contracting time is a very, very tight schedule. Mm-hmm. And do they get the identical information as we Norwegian partners receive? Or we have to communicate with them through Norwegian partner? How the communication in Romania is going? Because this is very important for us. We get the same information at the same time. Then that's the work very close.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Anka, would you like to respond to this?
Can she repeat
okay, I can.
Question? Can you synthesize her question? I didn't get all.
Okay, I will repeat it. The question was regarding the communication between Norwegian partners and Icelandic and Romanian partners. Will the Romanian partners get the same information as what was given to the Norwegian partners in this meeting? Or is it up to the Norwegian partners to communicate this?
No, the same information will be provided to the project promoters. Tomorrow they will receive also the model grant agreement, the model for the partnership agreement, and as already mentioned on Monday, we will meet with them and have the same information seminar on the contract. So
okay, thank
it's
you.
not okay.
Thank you. I just forgot to introduce myself. I'm Dr. Ji-Hong Liu Clark from Bioforskning.
Yeah, thank you. So for the communication between partners, I would also like to add that this seminar is actually also accessible to Romanian partners. We will keep the recording of the live stream and keep it on our website. So if you want to go back and look into some issues together with your partner, you will be able to use this as a resource for looking at things together. And I know we have some Romanians following us now, so hello. Yeah. Any more questions do we have? Please just come forward.
Jeg er Trond Bøhler fra NILU. I'm Trond Bøhler from NILU, sorry. Just a quick question about the partnership agreement. What is the deadline for signing the partnership agreement? I thought, shall that be before that agreement is submitted?
Yes, partnership agreement needs to be signed before the grant agreement. Do we have a date for when the partnership agreements are to be signed?
Well, ideally, as stated in my presentation, it will be 6th of June, which I know it's on a very short notice. However, the last date for presenting us this signed partnership agreement will be on June 17. This is the final date when all the documents should be in place, complete and correct, fulfilled.
Thank you.
Okay. So maybe I can add an additional question. For the signature of the contract, will you need the signed paper document from Norway by the 17th, or can it be submitted electronically?
I think the original could be sent by mail delivery by this time. The original.
Okay, so it needs to be sent by the 17th, and if you receive an electronical version on the 17th, then you can wait for the post to deliver the rest of it. Maybe. I'm just trying to because we have so few days, so allowing 3 days for the postal service to work will make a difference.
Okay. I think it will help the process for the project partners to send us electronically at the latest on June 17, and then by mail in the next couple of days to have the originals also sent to us.
Okay, yeah. So you need to sign them by 17th and then communicate it electronically and also send the documents by post. All right. There was one more question.
Flexibility of budget estimate from year one. Yes, how much percent?
I think this was up here. There was a question on the flexibility of the budget between years. I'm trying to find back the correct slide. Is it this one?
I don't think so. It's
Okay, so it's the exception number 3, shift of funds between subsequent budgetary years.
Yes, this is the one.
Yeah.
No percentage specified.
There is no percentage limit to how much can be shifted.
There is, the shift
between years.
between years. Yes, there is no limit for this.
No limit.
To maintain the objective.
No limit. Yes, just among the categories of expenses. If you want to shift money from one category to another, you cannot do it more than 15% of the total budget. It's
Okay.
number one.
Yeah, and all of these limitations in the shifts, they come into force once the grant agreement is signed. So during the negotiation phase now, there is much more now there is flexibility. On June 17th, flexibility is restricted. So now in the budgeting phase, you can move things. Afterwards, within the limits, yeah.
But she says there's no limit between years.
For the years, no limit, yeah. As long as you get things done.
Yeah. But 15% between categories.
Yeah. Okay. Anything more? Yes, please come forward. Yeah. No.
Hi, my name is Karianne Ulsnes and I come from the University of Oslo. And I have a question regarding a possible change of the research team leader of the Norwegian partner. Is that possible? not to not out of the project, but change the roles within the partner.
Changing roles within the partners group.
Yes. So there's one person who is appointed research team leader. So is it possible that another person are having this role?
Yeah. So you have so we'll still have the same researchers involved for the Norwegian partner, but they would shift roles. Would that be possible, Anka?
Well, there is at this point. I think this change will not affect at all the evaluation performed for the project. Which the team is the same, just a shift of tasks. What is important that the project promoter is the same, and we have the same members of the team involved in the project. I think
the same expertise of team.
Same expertise, and it won't affect the things.
Yeah. So it's okay. So kind of the limits of the things that you can change in the project is that the project application was evaluated by the expert, and that is the basis for awarding the funding. If you make changes that make the project becomes a different project than the one evaluated, then we have a problem, and that will not be possible. So minor changes that would not have affected the evaluation and the score are possible, but nothing beyond that. So for the cuts in the budget, they cannot be done by cutting out a work package or a partner. That is not possible. Please come forward.
Hi, University of Oslo. I was wondering, although not changing the amount of personnel costs, would it be possible to reallocate some of these to technical and administrative support, for instance?
I think the question is it possible to change cost categories between personal costs and technical support staff? And then the answer, I think, will be different if you're thinking about changing those before the contract is signed and after the contract is signed. But it should be possible to some measure at least. Anka, what would you say?
Before signing the contract, it is up to the project partners to decide where they will change the budget and where they will reduce it. After the contract is signed, we have to follow the provisions of the contract. And this is the exception with the first exception to the rule mentioned on the slide.
Thank you. Anything else? We're running out of steam. It's been a heavy day. Please come forward.
Hello, my name is Hilde Olav. I'm a legal advisor at the Cancer Registry of Norway. I have a question regarding the partnership agreement. Is the partnership agreement a standard agreement, or is it possible to give further specifications or make amendments in the partnership agreement? Of course, within the limits of the project agreement. That's my question. Thank you.
Okay. Anka, did you hear that?
Yes.
Yeah.
This model for the partnership agreement is recommended by us, but if the partners are willing to make amendments within the limits of the regulations and the IPR rules, they can do so. In fact, there was a message sent by Stefan de Graaf from Trondheim, which commented on this issue of IPR provisions from the partnership agreement, and I would like to take this opportunity to answer him. Indeed, the definition of the joint ownership was overlooked, and the texts that he suggests, according to the model used on DESCA, is welcome to be included in addition to the model provided. But these additions cannot be done in the grant agreement. They can be done only in the partnership agreement, since we have already the approvals and the endorsement of the minister for this model of the contract. And with regard to the text that he's suggesting, which Alexandra would like to forward the message to the rest of the partners interested in this subject. On the second paragraph, the last phrase should be deleted because it doesn't make sense. The partnership, in fact, this partnership agreement will establish the rules with regard to the use of the joint ownership on the results of the project.
Yeah. Okay. So to sum up, there is in the partnership agreement, if all partners agree, that it is possible to make some amendments. And indeed, one amendment is already being introduced. The project contract is already approved, so there will be no changes. And I think the experience we've got from the other programs is there is also some value in having a standard template and having the same contract for all projects, especially for institutions handling more than one project. They will be able to recognize the same contract across, and we will avoid the same kind of projects within the same programs running under very different conditions. But within the partnership agreement, there is some room for maneuver if your project demands some special provisions. I think that covers it. Any more questions? We still have some time, I think. Yep, 10 minutes left, so. Yeah. It seems that we have run out of steam here. No more questions coming in. In any case, if you come up with questions later, you know where to send them. You can send them to us and we will forward them to Anka, or you can send them directly. And we will also get all the materials from this seminar out on the webpage. Those who have, if there's still somebody who has not registered for this seminar, please do so, because this is how we will be able to reach you in the future. So I think with this, we'll say thank you very much to Anka and Vasila for the presentation and for the answers, and to you all for following us and asking the questions. Thank you very much, and good luck with the project.